in drafting such agreements to leave no room for ambiguity. Government should also endeavor to honor its obligations in a time to avoid such avoidable conflicts. Madam Speaker, D, the tax obligation. The Auditor General noted in his report that Jacobson owed government a total of Uganda shillings 4,427,136,909 shillings in taxes, which remained outstanding at closure of the due diligence exercise. It was, however, noted that Jacobson was also demanding Uganda shillings 299,292,530 shillings in tax credits. The Ministry of Energy informed the committee that they would ensure that any outstanding tax obligations owed are settled by the company. They have since written a letter seen by the committee to Uganda Revenue Authority to ascertain any other tax obligation owed before settling government's obligations to Jacobson in order to facilitate the transfer of the plant to government of Uganda. Jacobson, on its part, clarified that it was fully compliant in terms of tax credits and NSSF obligations. The committee tasked the Ministry of Energy to follow up on these two essential statutory obligations. Madam Speaker, the committee then went ahead to recommend that in the future, government should ensure that all obligations are met as stipulated in the agreement from both parties. Madam Speaker, this is legal due diligence. The report of the Auditor General noted significant compliance with the legal requirements in the implementation agreement and other provisions, save for issues like absence of maintenance records and non-functional maintenance system, ownership of the land on which the plant is located, actual asset list, and inventory list as required by the generation and sale license of 2020. The committee, Madam Speaker, on this recommends that the government should take interest and close all non-compliance loopholes as they are prone to abuse. With regard to land and buildings which were valid under the due diligence, the government should seek the approval of the chief government valuer and the true value before entering such negotiations for compensation in the near future. Madam Speaker, F, the takeover. From the due diligence report, covered the technical, financial, and legal aspects of the plant. There were existing liabilities by government of Uganda to a tune of Uganda shillings 14,427,232,000 shillings, 228 shillings, which had to be settled. In that regard, Jacobson had insisted that government of Uganda had to first settle all its obligations before the transfer of the plant, despite a transfer agreement being in place. The company contends that expiry of the implementation agreement without full payment by government of Uganda would constitute a dispute. Government, on its part, had committed through the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development that it would redeem its obligation in the second quarter of the financial year and advised that government proceeds to conclude the transfer of the plant to Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited. From the foregoing, therefore, the committee advises government to always settle its obligations in a timely manner. Madam Speaker, the committee also made general observations. Number one, Jacobson was originally foreign-owned and has since been transferred into a local company through sales of shares to Ugandans. It is therefore fully Ugandan-owned company which has built capacity on the continent in this sector. Such companies ought to be supported to realize the value in building such expertise and capability, which could in future be exported to generate the much needed foreign exchange and foreign specialized wealth. 2, Madam Speaker, the committee also observed that whereas Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited is a government enterprise, it's a company which is subject to the provisions of PPDA and regulations. These were omitted in granting it concession by the government without giving other companies, including Jacobson, a chance to compete for the job. Owing to the monopoly given to Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited, it is apparent that government could obtain a lower bid, as indeed agreed by Jacobson in its submission. Madam Speaker, the committee then made the following recommendations in respect to those observations. Government should always undertake efforts to promote local companies which have demonstrated expertise and capability in specialized and technical areas like this sector. Companies like Uganda Electricity Generation Company and Jacobson should be supported and encouraged to compete favorably. The second recommendation, Madam Speaker, it is in the considered opinion of the committee that Jacobson, which had quoted a comparatively lower cost to run the plant, be allowed to continue with the job. For example, Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited quoted a startup cost of $30.03 per megawatt, a charge that Jacobson did not need to incur. Similarly, Jacobson quoted a declared capacity charge of $6.60 per megawatt against the 7.08 per megawatt of UEGCL, over and above the market price. The government and indeed all parties should respect and follow the PPDA and regulations, for they were not made in vain. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, the global energy needs are continuing to diversify and evolve as the market for renewable energy production has become more competitive and cost efficient in comparison to traditional fossil fuels. As a country, we should work to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We should have a significant investment in the development of renewable energy infrastructure and also technologies. Thermal power plants are expensive in terms of fuel and maintenance, and as a result, the emphasis for Uganda should be investment on more environmentally efficient energy solutions, including wind, solar, and natural gas, which are comparatively cheaper in the long run. I beg to submit, Madam Speaker. As I earlier on said, this report is equally signed by almost 3/4 of the members. I beg to submit, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much, Chair. You've heard about the report. Christian, you want to say something? Yes?
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. Thank you very much for the report. And we recognize that Uganda is moving now towards the appreciation of renewable and clean energy. But Right Honorable Speaker, based on what we have been presented, it is evident that in most cases we allocate areas where these investors can establish their investments without thorough environment and social impact assessments. From the report you can see, as Uganda we allocated Mutundwe, we allocated Namave, but based on the geologists of the investor, they found that the land we had allocated them was not adequate, could not accommodate the vibration of the investment. It came to our mind that this is the right time. We should fast track the geologists that we have in Uganda. Because when you look at the challenge of flooding in Mbale industrial area, the same applies. The investors come thinking that we have done a thorough job to allocate them the best places, yet these are places that are prone to flooding. They are places that cannot accommodate the geology of the area. And then, Right Honourable Speaker, we have not understood the worth of the company. Was it making profit? That we are taking it on and we are going to make profit? And Right Honourable Speaker, when we had a benchmark in Tanzania, as such companies are handing over to the government, there is a group of locals who are readily trained to carry on the implementation and the activities of the investment. But here we are, our youth are looking for employment, and we have not seen how the locals are really going to benefit. It may not be feasible for us to know the shareholders of the company, but it may be of use at the moment to actually see and know who the shareholders are and the rate at which our youth are joining the employment, especially now that we are promoting the green jobs concept. There has been a comparison on clean energy and renewable energy, and the report is recommending that maintenance of the machinery leading us to this energy is very expensive. But Right Honourable Speaker, even wind, solar and the rest are also very expensive. We would like to know and as well prepare ourselves as we transition which exact energy should we promote, because we thought these are cheaper and sustainable, which we are not getting out of the report properly. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Christine. There was actually a forceful takeover of this company by UEDCL, something of the sort. And they did not consider the 2 years of COVID. They only considered 1 year, which I think was unfair. Yes, Akol? Do you have a motion?
Right Honourable Speaker, allow me to thank the chairperson of the committee and the committee members for the report. However, before I move, I am seeing contradiction on page 4. The committee is telling us in page 4 that the amount of 14.4 something billion was the money that was realized that should be paid to the company. And in their own statement, they're saying the committee was informed that government has met all its obligations. And at the same time, at the end, the committee is saying the money is not yet paid. I see some contradiction there that I want the chairperson of the committee to clarify on that. Right Honourable Speaker, in future we need to safeguard our investment that we want to transfer to the government, to the extent that somebody should not come from outside pretending to be investor to invest in our country, and at the end of the day will transfer it back to our people or to the government of Uganda. Then in the middle of it, the person changed to become a national company of Uganda, then request that the same project should be handed over to them. However, in this case, I think we have to look properly, see if we have not within the period trained the people who are able to run the project, then we are left with no option but to make sure that we can take the recommendation of the committee. But going forward, I think we should look into that. In the middle of it, is this company training our local people in the country who can be able to run the similar project when they leave the country? In this case, we cannot do much because we have not been monitoring it. We don't know whether we have the local people who can run the project, then we don't risk at the moment. But in future, I think it is important that we safeguard people who come, that they invest in the country, they're going to build, and at the end of the day operate, and then hand over to our government. Then at the end we say we are a local company, we want to take over ourselves. I think we have to be, serious on this and monitor before we come to the end of it. Thank you very much.
Santa, I'm coming
Thank
to
you. Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. Allow me also thank the committee for coming up with this good report. However, Right Honorable Speaker, one, government always enters into agreement which requires counterpart funding. But at the end of it all, you find that government is not meeting its obligation. Madam Speaker, this is very serious. By the time government enters into a project of this nature, I want to believe that the government has a planning unit and it has planned. So much so that, Madam Speaker, we always find ourselves in incurring a lot of costs. For example, you see money changing and keeping on increasing on the amount. Madam Speaker, issue number 2, the Attorney General, for the first time, really impressed me by stating it categorically clear on page 8 that this business of entering into agreement and then later you do your own things should not be tolerated. I want to thank the Attorney General on this, Madam Speaker. But I want to get some point of clarification as to why the committee has not followed suit. Then finally, Madam Speaker, on the issue of the local content, I'm somehow impressed that this company was given to the local people. This is what we have been crying for. But, Madam Speaker, I don't know whether we have some people, some Ugandans, who are trained. At one time I visited, as a committee, we visited, I think, Ghana, and any company, a foreign company which comes in, one very key issue that must stand out very clearly is training of the local people. So that when they are leaving, we have the local people trained to technically manage such a good and big program. Madam Speaker, I want to thank you. I beg to submit.
Morris.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I wish to join the colleagues in thanking the chairperson and the committee for the good work done. Right Honorable Speaker, the committee has given us good recommendations. And under that background, Right Honorable Speaker, unless somebody has a serious amendment, I wish to move a motion that the House adopts the report of the committee as it has been.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Isaac Otimgiu, Badiere County in Nebi District. Right Honorable Speaker, I think the committee has actually presented a very important report which is affecting most areas of our country. And for that reason, I do not second the motion which was brought on the floor by our honorable colleagues. I still feel that we have some inputs that we should put on this.
What is your
report.
input?
My input, Madam Speaker, is mainly that the energy amendment bill which was passed on this House, which is due to be brought back, cannot actually be brought back any sooner. Because the issue of monopoly is what is actually affecting our energy industry in this matter. Uganda Electricity Distribution Company and the Generation Company are actually taking the advantage of the monopoly in this industry. As we can see on this report, also on the recommendation of the committee, their names have again come up.
So you're suggesting we merge them?
I'm suggesting that actually we merge the company because they're all almost doing the same thing, Madam Speaker. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The issue of monopoly denying the small companies to be able to get capacity building. Yes, Lucy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to say something later about this report. Allow me also to add my voice in thanking the committee for doing a good job. Madam Speaker, I associate myself with the recommendations that was made by the committee, especially the recommendations on page 11 of the report, and also observing that JUPPCL, which was formerly foreign, is actually a local, is now a local company. Madam Speaker, as a country, we need to put a lot of effort in local content and develop our capacity as a country, because many of these foreign companies, when they come, take away even the knowledge which they came with, they even take away the monies. So for me, I am in total agreement and support of the recommendation of the committee. But most importantly, Madam Speaker, on recommendation 3 on page 11, where government and indeed all parties should respect and follow the PPDA and regulations. Madam Speaker, following your directive to COSASE, I take this as something very urgent that we need to work on as a Vice Chair of COSASE, and this is something we are going to follow up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Yume.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would want to thank the committee for their excellent report. Mine is just to resound the fact that 2003, 2007, and 2011 were quite black spots in the history of the energy sector. The load shedding was at its peak. So I think government took that bold step to come in with thermal as an emergency measure. And these emergency measures boil down to the fact that we don't plan, we don't forecast. Thermal electricity is the most expensive. I think going forward, instead of these knee-jerk reactions, how can we forecast 30, 40, 50 years from now, build infrastructure that will not be able to be outstripped by demand? We are at the equator, Madam Speaker. Solar harvesting, solar energy, which is being done in Europe, and for them the panels actually turn. Where the sun is, they turn. But here, we are at the equator, we have the solar. Why don't we go into solar farms? I saw one on about 50 acres in Busia, and I think that's the way to go. We can get the same 10 megawatts from solar farms. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Is that Jen Aboro?
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I want to thank the committee for the report. And Madam Speaker, allow me to, I want to agree with honorable members here who have posed concern about the delay or underutilization of, or delay in the thermal solar project in Namamve. Right Honorable Speaker, as a Committee of Finance, in the last Parliament, we took a visit to the Namamve industrial, the Kampala industrial area. And one of our findings was many investors are not taking up the plots that have been given because of the delay in this thermal solar project. And then the other finding that we got was that the government seems not to be speaking to each other. The NEMA had put a sort of an embargo on this because they were saying this was in a wetland and the project could not be continued. It is paramount that government needs to coordinate their interventions, because these are same government, same entities in the government, But you find that when the project has been approved, then the other part of government is saying, no, you can't continue. I think this is delaying service to our people. This is delaying the growth and development of this country, and it needs to be urgently addressed. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Government, you need to speak to each other. Anifa.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. The thermal power plant is in Mukono district. So my question, I want to first of all appreciate the report from the Park Committee, but I also want to add on to this information about acquisition of land in Namamve Industrial Park. Uganda Investment Authority normally has locations depending on the kind of work you're going to do or ability of the machines. I wonder why before allocating the thermal plant activity or transaction could not have first done as such before allocating you the land leading to vibrations. 1. 2, I also want to ask whether this thermal plant attracts employment to my local people around Namamve. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Honorable Dokola. Miss Uganda.
I'm telling you. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for declaring me permanent Miss Uganda. However, I would like to make a comment on paragraph C. I think there are so many issues here which we need to clear out. First of all, we are talking about government company vis-a-vis a privately owned company. Although shares have been bought in, but some of us who fought with the economy when it was almost 80% in the hands of foreigners, in order to transfer it to the hands of the local. It's not easy. Sometimes it appears as if the local have bought shares in a previously owned foreign company. When you look deeper, what the lawyers would call opening the veil, or opening the veil, you'll find that actually deep inside there has not been much local component in the new face of the company. So, Right Honorable Speaker, I would want to caution ourselves, this institution of parliament, that we must encourage our own companies that can help us, one, to develop something which is ours. Power is so important that if we are to let it go in the hands of foreigners and they can cause darkness in the country, it's a big security risk. So we should make sure we strengthen our own, and will also help us to recruit our own people in the employment of those companies that we are actually trying to bring down. So, Speaker, in that paragraph which I'm citing, paragraph C, here is a chair who has sold, chairman of the board of directors, selling his own private land to the company where he is the chair and the leader of the policy formulation of the company. And you sell your own land, and there are so many other issues which are hanging. Right Honorable Speaker, we can quickly approve this report, but we must be mindful that there are so many errors which have been cited. We must clean it, we can't run away from it. It is very obvious and we can't hide it. I think we need to dig deeper, and maybe we need to be guided even by the legal team, because here we are talking about a letter dated 15 June, barring the company from further acquisition of land. So how did they manage to get more land when this particular section did not allow them? So really, I think we have to be straight, because nobody else can help us if we can't help ourselves. I thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank
and
you.
maybe, sorry, Right Honourable Speaker, why is West Nile in darkness? Why is West Nile in darkness up to this area? We have already signed a contract with this company. I don't know whether they are called Electro something. Why is it still in darkness? And even yesterday, Right Honourable Speaker, I tried to call here and there, and I was told that there is general load shedding arising from where? Can we do something about our Karuma Dam, if they can possibly save us the crisis at the moment? So, Right Honourable Speaker, we have spent a lot of money. We have invested so much in power, but we are not seeing the result of that investment. I thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Chair. Can you respond to some of the questions? But before you respond, I had a meeting today with the members of Parliament of West Nile, headed by the chairman of West Nile, with the Minister of Energy, with the Electromax, is that Electromax or whichever, the companies that provide power to West Nile, and we agreed there should be a motion in this House tomorrow in regard to electricity in West Nile. Because lack of electricity has caused a lot of insecurity, it has affected the health centers, it has affected education, it has affected everything. And when you look at the providers of power in that area, it's like they are coached on what to say. They say for the last 1 week we have been okay, and yet the members are saying there is no power. So we'll have a motion here tomorrow, and we have that issue resolved. It is only this House that can pronounce whether the company can continue or not. And I want to tell you, ministers, it is this House that can only make a decision, good or bad. Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the colleagues for the observations and compliments that have been raised. Honorable Akol raised the concern of, on page 4, of 14,427,000,000, which he said looked inconsistent on the other page. Madam Speaker, this was an estimate of the outstanding obligation. And at the end of it all, when you go to page 10, after assessment, and the assessment by Jacobson insisted the agreement, implementation agreement, had expired. So in that case, they cannot transfer the project to GOU before their obligations are met. And you will recall that the 14, which was raised on page 4, was what was formally agreed as the outstanding obligations. Other than that, they were prepared to institute a legal dispute resolution on that note. So that 14 is what was agreed, and I think it was harmonized and resolved for payment. Honorable Lucy raised the concern of local content. Madam Speaker, as you will read in our general observations, Jacobson is one of the companies that has moved forward in this sector, private company that has moved forward in this sector. They trained personnel, and our own UEGCL took over some of those personnel who had been trained. But I've also moved ahead in other various energy-related directions. I think they are one of the leading local consultancy agencies as far as the power sector is concerned. We are also reliably informed they have even moved into the oil sector and are continuing to provide expertise within the interests of also the oil sector. So it is actually one of the local companies that continues to build the capacity for the benefit of our local industry. The Honorable Member of Parliament for Mukono raised the concern as to why there was a shift from Namamve to where the company finally settled. We were told, and as per the report, geotechnical surveys were done on the areas that had been allocated to them in Namamve and found not suitable. And that is what informed their movement to an area that met the minimum requirements as far as the environmental impact assessment was concerned, but also in terms of suitability. As far as employing the local people around there is concerned, I want to believe that those with the technical expertise, this is a very sensitive project, those with the technical expertise, like I've already highlighted, maybe some of those people absorbed and who have been taken over by UEGCL might be Mukono people. I'm not very sure, but as per the technicalities and requirements of this project in particular, I know they have continued to grow the Ugandan local content as experts. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Minister.
Right, Honorable Speaker and colleagues. First of all, I would wish to appreciate the report of the committee. What they highlighted in their report and the inadequacies at the time were truly inadequacies that we had. And we also have to look back, when was this thermal plant put in place? It was at the time when this country was literally running dark and government had to make a decision to have a thermal plant put in place at that time to meet our energy needs. Over time, we have built capacity to generate the power through sustainable means. For example, the generation has actually gone up since then. The renewal of the concession for generation of thermal electricity power was actually occasioned by still the need to have the plant running. And it reached a time when the concession came to its logical end. And in the concessional agreement, the power purchase agreement, it was actually very clear at certain the thermal plant reverts to government. And that's when it goes to government. And the transfer was guided within the laws, the provisions of our laws of Uganda made by this parliament. And now, at the time of the transfer, Jacobson was registered as a concessioner, as a foreign company. And in the provisions of the concession, the plant was supposed to be handed over to Uganda. That's how this came about. And this thermal plant now, as we talk, we have sustainable generation of electricity through renewable sources, where we are projecting that we have more power than we are consuming. We are producing now up to about 1,370 plus megawatts against a peak demand of about 800 megawatts. That's why in Parliament last time we were asking to be allowed some resources for deemed energy. However, this thermal plant is still necessary as a standby source of energy should anything happen. It is a standby as a backup. It is not operating 100%. It's operating at minimum just to keep the engines running. There isn't much business on that thermal plant now. Even if we gave it to a private sector, they may not be able to adequately generate the profits that they expect because it is standby. We are bringing in 600 megawatts come March next year on top of the 100 megawatts. It means we are going to have more dimmed energy to perfect the distribution and the utilization of electricity in this country. I allow clarification.
Thank you. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, planning is very critical. And this is a priority government project that required planning. Right Honorable Speaker, I've seen government constructing expensive government installations on land that does not own, and eventually compensation becomes so high. So why did you fail to do planning so that we expend monies that are basically fair?
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Speaker, I had a chance of going to West Nile in the 9th and 10th Parliament. And indeed, when you go to West Nile, Honourable Speaker, they are generating power using thermal, and at 8, they were switching off power because they don't want to consume fuel. They want to use fuel. But there is a Catholic church which runs the radio called the Passes, Passes. Now, the Abazungus there, white priests at the parish, they are generating power using solar energy, and they were saying that they can serve West Nile power if these people can procure power from them. And because of political, maybe those of West Nile will correct me where I go wrong, because by the time we left there, they were willing and they would sell power at cheaper cost to West Nile. But you want to find out from the Honourable Minister, what is that making you fail to get an agreement with the Catholic Church, which is a community-based, which are community-based people, to give power that can last throughout the time and it's a bit cheaper than spending on fuel. Then lastly, Mr. Honourable Minister, the dam is constructed at Karuma. We are seeing power running up Chisoro. We know the distance between Kampala and Chisoro or Jinja. Why aren't you planting lines from Karuma going up to West Nile? Where is the problem? Is it crossing the bridge? It is there. Can you explain all that?
Information.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Information.
You say there is too much power produced. Why do we still have load shedding, even in Kampala?
They are producing more than we need.
Father,
why do we have load shedding?
Thank you, Honorable, for giving me the opportunity to give more information.
Is he the one who gave you opportunity?
Right Honourable Speaker.
You sit.
Right Honourable, I'm giving very critical information, Right Honourable Speaker, which will help the House and all of us. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to give the information to this House. Right Honourable Speaker, I heard the Minister talking about that thermal plant, that it is a standby just in case of anything. And this House passed money for the solar project in Kororo, which they have said that it's working effectively and it supplies a lot of energy that will complement hydroelectricity power. In addition to that, we recently also passed a budget that is going to produce solar power in Nakasongola, which project is huge. So why don't we use that solar power that is free in terms of using the sunlight, such that we don't spend more money on thermal power that is extremely expensive? We should support solar power. And let me tell you,
countries that are using solar power save a lot than the electricity that we are talking about.
Honorable Nyachi, when did you pass the money?
Pardon?
When did we pass the money?
Yes, in this recent budget.
First,
And
first ask the minister, do you have the money? You ask him the question, do you have the money? Honorable Minister, there is a question from Honorable Nyachi.
Actually, Right Honorable Speaker, it is an issue of planning. Because why I'm saying, remember, Right Honorable Speaker gave me the opportunity.
Now let me tell you, the money that you passed here, the one that was supposed to go to energy, to gender, to where, has been cut by how much? How much percentage have you got? 8%. So now the issue is the event doesn't have the money. He's only trying to cover the face of government.
You know,
Lop.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable Minister, just as you have alluded to having dimmed energy through these thermal power plants, I'm really shocked because that energy is very expensive to produce. In terms of fuel, talk about Jacobson, Uganda power plant. That is a guzzler, even before it was locally owned and it transferred into a local company. We had been grappling with the expenses that would go into fuel. So in terms of fuel and maintenance, these thermal power plants are very expensive. And the government, I would implore you to be advising that you shift and invest in, say, wind energy. We have lots of wasted wind. You go to Mount Elgon, go to Kapchorwa. Lots of wind. Solar energy, or even natural gas, as it is actually mentioned in the report. But the minister, to shower praises on the excess energy, when it is very expensive to produce, I think we had better take counsel and guidance from the committee report. Couldn't we go for cleaner energy? Because if we could have environmentally friendly, environmentally efficient solutions like that of wind, you know the world we have now, the challenge. This climate change is a global challenge. And as we grapple with it, we should minimize greenhouse gas emissions through such cleaner energy. But also, lastly, Honorable Minister, why would government flout your own laws, PPDA and regulations, that you could give monopoly to Uganda Electricity Generation Company against a local company of Jacobson? I think is a vice that you ought to equally condemn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Law. Minister, do you still have what to say?
Right, Honorable Speaker, we're actually talking the same. Hold on, when you're talking, I was not agreeing.
We are talking the same in terms of...
We are talking this going clean energy. Most of the power which we are producing and using is hydro, which is clean. We are promoting the use of solar. That is clean energy. We are promoting cheaper sources of electricity, as Loeb has rightly said, because thermal is extremely expensive and it pollutes the environment, unlike the other sources. And we are exploiting the energy mix, mainly using sustainable and clean energy sources. So that's why I'm saying we're actually talking the same.
And are we talking the same in terms of Bubu?
I need to come to that one.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker and the Honourable Minister, for giving way. Whereas we are promoting clean energy, you know that we have spent money on dams to construct hydro energy. The energy that is being produced at Achua is not actually being taken to the people, and we continuously pay a lot of money over that energy. And there is the Right Honourable Speaker, the land, the energy is not being transmitted to people because some private person was given land which was previously owned by government, and the person has stopped government from extending power to the people. The clarification I seek from you, what is going to happen to the dams over which we have paid so much money and we have failed to transmit this power to the people, whereas we promote clean energy?
Honourable Minister.
She is right. The ministry is in desires to get that power transmitted. And many times we have come to this house to ask for money to do that. We have not got that money. So, it is not money. How do you construct a transmission line without money? It is planned, and you have not given me the money. Now, coming to procurement, that one we can take it and discuss how do we streamline if there was a mistake made in procurement and the reversal of this thermal power plant to government. If there was a mistake made, let's discuss it. On procurement, as concluded by the committee, that's where we need to discuss.
Honourable members, all of you have given your contribution, and this report will go to the relevant ministry for a treasury memorandum. And I want you to take seriously the recommendations of the committee, plus the amendments of the members. I now put a question that the report of the Committee of Public Accounts, Central Government, on Auditor's General Special Audit Report on the Namamve Thermal Power Plant for the year ended June 2021, be adopted with amendments. Those in favor say unto the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Item 6, motion for adoption of the report of the Committee on Public Accounts, Central Government on the Auditor General's report on the United Nations Population Fund project implemented by the National Population Council for the year ended 31st December 2020.
Can you summarize this? There is only one amendment.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Right Honourable Speaker. As far as I recall, Honourable Segona was the chairman of that committee, deputized by Honourable Basaru. May he report on the fate of his chairperson and deputy as he proceeds? Is it procedure right?
Honourable Hajat, you are a member of my committee, that's Appointments Committee. Once I delegate you, you become the chair. At that particular time, is delegated and I was written to on the delegation.
Most obliged, Madam Right Honourable
Thank you.
Speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for that wide guidance. I am here to execute the mandate of Parliament, and on behalf of the Public Accounts Committee, I also want to remind you that I'm also the whip of that committee. So when my bosses are not around, I take charge to present in the interests of the South. Madam Speaker.
Chairman for today takes charge.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the minutes of the Committee on Public Accounts Committee Central for this last presentation have also been attached, and I beg to lay the minutes and proceedings of this report on the table. Madam Speaker, this is a report of the Committee on Public Accounts Committee on the audit, on the Auditor General's report on the United Nations Population Fund project implemented by the National Population Council for the year ended 31st December 2020. The original report, signed by members in the majority, is also hereby presented and laid on the table. Madam Speaker, as part of the introduction, this is a very brief report. It will take me a very short time to conclude. On the 5th October 2021, Parliament referred the Auditor General's report of the United Nations Population Fund implemented by National Population Council NPC for the year ended 31st December 2020. The report that attracted an unqualified opinion by the Auditor General covered the accounting statements comprising of the combined delivery report presented, funding authorization and the certificate of expenditure, and a summary of significant accounting policies and other explanatory information of UNFPA. The methodology, Madam Speaker, pursuant to Rule 174, the committee scrutinized the report of the Auditor General and met with the accounting officer. The committee further reviewed and made references to the auditor, to the audit report on UNFP program, completion report of the 8th GOU/UNFPA country program, evaluation report, proof of accountability of uncredited funds, and the details of the unstamped vouchers. Number 3, Madam Speaker, the observations and recommendations. Payment of ineligible VAT. The audit report noted that management made VAT payments of Uganda shillings 17,308,575 shillings in respect of supply of hotel services, media broadcasting, and supply of assorted items, contrary to Section 24, subsection 7 of the VAT Act, which requires taxable supplies made to a government institution by a contractor executing an aid-funded project to be deemed paid by government institutions. The gross amount paid, inclusive of VAT, from all supplies was done without considering the provisions of both IP agreements and the VAT Act. While meeting with the committee, Madam Speaker, the management acknowledged the anomaly in VAT payments and informed the meeting that it was a mistake on their part to have charged a wrong budget line and instead paid VAT service providers and not Uganda Revenue Authority. They further informed the committee that Uganda shillings 17,308,575 shillings, being the VAT paid in error in respect of various supplies, was refunded to UNFPA. Although the money was refunded, the committee, Madam Speaker, notes that this act is in violation of the VAT Act and in a breach of the IP agreement. Management should ensure that internal financial controls are put in place to avoid such occurrences in the future. The committee notes, Madam Speaker, that although the Auditor General classifies this report on the entity as unqualified, the report raised a number of issues that were not complied with, some reoccurring from the previous audits. They included as number one, failure to stamp vouchers and stamps paid, delay to release money by the partner leading to delayed implementation of activities, inadequate financial control procedures concerning accountability statements, and then 4, uncredited transfers unaccounted for funds in the reconciliation. Although the management informed the committee that measures have been put in place to address the recurring audit queries, the committee notes that failure to stamp vouchers as paid presents a high risk of presenting such documents to support future fictitious payments. The committee, Madam Speaker, made a recommendation that a forensic audit is done to determine how many vouchers were not stamped and the corresponding amounts of money to avoid reoccurrence of the same in the near future. Madam Speaker, I beg to submit. This report is also duly signed by majority of the members, and I beg to submit.
Thank you so much, Chair. Honorable Cecilia.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, this is a very straightforward audit opinion on the agency we are trying to investigate. The issue which has come out very clearly is the issue of corporate governance. Right Honorable Speaker, we had talked about in the last Parliament about bringing up a law, a framework that will regulate the behaviors of those that manage the different agencies, whether private or government owned. And because these regulations are lacking, that's why we are having all these problems. It doesn't matter how many audits you will do, as long as the practice is not controlled, we are likely to have so many agencies abused, Right Honorable Speaker. So I beg to request that maybe the commission and the relevant committee should come up with a law to regulate the management of the various institutions we have in the country. I beg to submit.
Thank you. These are direct issues. I will put a question to the effect, because it is only one issue and concerns governance. I now put a question, the report of the Committee of Public Accounts, Central Government on Auditor General's report on the United Nations Population Fund implemented by National Population Council for the year ended 31st December 2020 be adopted. Those in favor say unto the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Item 3, motion.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, allow me to take this opportunity to thank you and thank colleagues who have supported us in this report, but also as per your earlier communication when we were starting and your citing of Article 163, subsection 4, I want to inform you that, Madam Speaker, if it pleases you, by next week we shall be ready to load the House with our health reports. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
I will be glad to receive your reports. Wand Park, Central Park, Local Government, and Kosase. But all the other committees that have work must bring them to the House. Yes.
Item 3, motion for resolution of Parliament urging government to prioritize the state of the youth in Uganda.
Honorable members, on Friday, 5th August 2022, I officiated the opening of the Youth Parliament in this House, which was hosted in these chambers. I undertook to allow Honorable Court Boniface Henry, the youth representative for the North, an opportunity to move a motion in this House. And here he is. Kindly move your motion, which we will debate together with a statement from Honorable Amongi, the Minister of Gender.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Pursuant to Rule 56 of our Rules of Procedure.
Yes.
Right Honourable Speaker, you had guided the House that the motion of the youth representative will have to come first, and then we discuss that motion of the youth together with the information from the Ministry of Gender. But looking at the House, Right Honourable Speaker, the issue of youth is so important. And I'm sure the Ministry of Gender will not feel comfortable that we will be reading this motion when the House is not very well represented. And then some people don't seem to have had lunch like me. They're also getting, the sugar level is also getting down a bit. So, Right Honourable Speaker, I just want to be guided. Is it procedurally right that a very important motion that concerns the youth of this country be presented to the House when the House is scantily represented to this afternoon? And right.
You know, one important thing is Mama is not a youth. She's a senior youth. The rest of the youth are here. And they are ready to receive the motion. So go ahead and read your motion. Maurice, you will come and debate on the motion. I know you're still a youth.
Thank you for the guidance. Pursuant to Rule 56 of our Rules of Procedure, I rise to move a motion for the resolution of Parliament urging government to prioritize the state of the youth in Uganda. Whereas Article 79(1) of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda 1995 bestows upon Parliament the power to legislate on any matter for the peace, order, development and good governance of Uganda. And whereas the National Development Plan 3 recognizes the need to harness the youthful population as a precondition for attaining the country's development aspirations, including reducing youth unemployment, exploiting the potential demographic dividend from the abundant labor force and future demand by streamlining and reforming youth and women employment programs to help young Ugandans find employment. It further puts a priority on skills and vocational development in all sectors. Aware that the government has invested significant resources to facilitate employment, livelihood, and entrepreneurship through the various strategic policies and development initiatives like Amioga for supporting non-agricultural enterprises and the parish development model for supporting agricultural enterprises, and the Uganda Development Bank special program for the youth as a post-COVID youth enterprise support. And further aware that the youth who are between the age of 18 to 30 years constitute 19% of the population and are a very large group of the productive workforce of the population. And yet, youth labor underutilization is still high at 43.5%. Recalling that this House has previously debated, documented, and passed some resolutions to address the various challenges affecting the youth, and also cognizant of the positive strides by government to address challenges affecting the youth through initiating employment and skilling reforms, promoting youth health and education reforms, instituting youth participation in decision-making while paying attention to gender equality and encouraging climate governance to mitigate the effects of climate change. Concerned that the quality of education remains generally low and mostly expensive, characterized by free education programs of UPE and USE that are not necessarily free, coupled with a high rate of school dropout, especially post-COVID-19, owing to a high rate of teenage motherhood and a mismatch between skills required for labor market and knowledge produced by training institutions, noting that there was an increase in the proportion of working persons purely in subsistence agriculture due to COVID-19, and further noting that while the government has invested a lot of resources to facilitate agricultural financing across the value chain, the structure and the nature of such schemes and limited access to information has made it difficult for the youth to access. Recognizing that access to health services continues to be a burden to the youth citizen, with an increasing cost of healthcare and a rise in out-of-pocket expenses, with only 3.9% of the population having access to health insurance, and further recognizing that there is limited structured government support and policies for startups, science and technology-based innovations and initiatives that have the potential of transforming lives and providing local solutions and creating employment, noting that sustainable development is the target of government development programs and the climate financing remains dismally low in Uganda. In the financial year 2022 and 23 national budget, only Uganda shillings 628 billion has been apportioned for actions to mitigate and adapt to climate change. And further noting that 37.2% of climate change and disaster victims are aged between 5 to 18 years, while an additional 37.4 are aged between 18 to 49. Now, therefore, be it resolved by this Parliament that, number one, government scales up interventions for youth in skilling, employment and livelihoods by, among others, ensuring that all forms of financing are significant, accessible and affordable with a dedicated and ring-fenced quota for the youth. Secondly, that government ensures that all social services in health and education are youth responsive. Number three, that government deliberately, meaningfully and adequately involves the youth in decision making at various hierarchies of government. And then four, that government ramps up climate change governance initiatives while involving the youth. I beg to move.
Thank you. Is the motion seconded? Seconded by Ms. Cecilia. Seconded by Amos, Margaret, Phyllis, by the whole House. Judith, can you, Court, can you speak to your motion very briefly?
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker of the House. August is a very special month for the youth internationally, since it's a time that we celebrate the International Youth Day every 12th of August. I want to beseech you, the Right Honourable Speaker, and members of this House to consider reserving time every August to debate a motion on the annual state of the youth in Uganda, and also receive reports of actions taken by the responsible MDAs on the resolutions concerning the youth in this House. Right Honorable Speaker, I will also want to comment on the statement by our able minister regarding the International Youth Day by stating that we appreciate the work of the Ministry of Gender to the young people. However, I want to express my utter disappointment in particularly the shift of the International Youth Day from its internationally gazetted date of 12 August to the 26th of August 2022. It must be remembered that this celebration is an annual calendar event that government knows exists. And so we are here talking about an international event, not necessarily a national event. And the rationale for the shift of the date is purely on account of unavailable funding. And in my opinion, it shows a lack of prioritization of youth issues. And yet, we have celebrated these events under very restrictive conditions of COVID-19 in 2020 and 2021. And so I want to demand on behalf of the young people that this date be celebrated on its internationally gazetted date of 12th of August. And the Ministry of Gender and the Minister for Finance here should also make commitments to the young people of this country that they are not forgotten about. Now, back to my motion, Right Honorable Speaker. The development of this particular motion, I want to salute members of the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Youth Affairs and our very progressive partners who are in the gallery. The spirit of this motion is tied with our commitment to ensure that the aspirations of everyday youth are solicited, aggregated, and presented at the highest levels of decision making. In acknowledgement of our constitutional legislation, appropriation, oversight, and representation, we held various consultations with sections of young people, including the National Youth Council, the Youth Councillors, Uganda National Student Association, the University Guild leaders, youth in political parties, youth in civil society organizations, youth in formal and informal employment, the youth in rural and urban spaces, among many other groups. And we developed the National State of the Youth Report 2022 and the Youth Legislative Agenda, which is for 5 years, 2022-2026, to guide and provide youth legislative direction over the next 5 years. Last Friday also, chaired by you, on the 5th of August 2022, the Parliament of Uganda, under the correct stewardship of the Right Honorable Speaker, also hosted the annual National Youth Parliament 2022. Right Honorable Speaker, the resolutions I beg to lay, Right Honorable Speaker, the resolutions of the National Youth Parliament 2022, which was conducted here. The title here is Resolutions of the 5th National Youth Parliament. I beg to lay.
Please lay and clerk, that should be captured.
Right Honorable Speaker, I also have the National State of the Youth Report 2022. I beg to lay.
Please lay.
Right Honorable Speaker, documents are linked to the overall strategic framework of Parliament of Uganda, whose overall goal is to legislate for the people, for sustainable development and democracy in Uganda. Following these multiple stakeholder consultations with the youth, we noted and summarized the youth challenges into 4 core themes and made recommendations for interventions of government. Challenge number 1 is particularly the question of the effectiveness of government interventions for youth, employment, and better livelihoods. Challenge number 2 that we found is particularly the question of the responsiveness of social services in health and education to meet the needs of the youth. Challenge number 3 is the question of the meaningfulness of youth participation in decision making and governance while cognizant of gender equality. Challenge number 4 is the question youth involvement in climate change governance. I'll go to question number 1, Right Honourable, on how effective are the interventions of government for youth employment and better livelihoods. The UN defines the youth as a person between the ages of 15 and 24 years of age. The African Youth Charter, which is a continental framework, defines the youth as an individual between 15 to 35 years of age, while the Uganda National Youth Policy defines the youth as a person aged 15 to 30 years and recognizes that the youth are a heterogeneous group. Constitutionally, a youth in Uganda is a person between the age of 18 to 30 years. Youth, however, is best understood as a period of transition from the dependence of childhood to the independence of adulthood. Going by these definitions, we can resolve that all members in this House are either youth or OBs and OGs of the youth, or better still, senior youth, including ATAT, Cecilia Gual. Hence the need to support these pro-youth interventions without reservations. It should also be noted that Uganda has one of the youngest populations in the world, with 78% of our population below the age of 30, representing a significant development potential, and if left untapped, could turn into a major development challenge. Uganda's national unemployment rate is currently 9.2%. The unemployment rate for youth aged 18 to 30 is 13.3%. Following the interruptions of COVID-19, the unemployment rates have increased. A majority of those who are employed are underemployed, working in risky, non-rewarding jobs that cannot afford a decent living. The greatest generational need for the contemporary young person is to tackle poverty through employment and livelihood enhancement intervention, be it a rural, urban, or even a ghetto youth. The youth demand that government reconsiders its focus to meet the 21st century needs of the youth in the following 5 strategic sectors that are best placed to accelerate employment of the youth in Uganda. Sector number 1 is commercial agriculture. While they acknowledge and appreciate the existence of agricultural financing, the young people demand that government addresses the limitedness, inaccessibility, and unaffordability of financing for agriculture. Government must include aspects of support for mechanization or agrotechnology to ensure agriculture is not only rain-fed, but integrate irrigation and fertilizer use. Of concern is also access to markets and technical support to youth agro-business and agro-startups. Our recommendations are that government should ensure that A, there is clarity on whether the youth quota in the parish development model of 30% is on the funds available or on the youth membership of the enterprise groups. B, that the parish development model, being an agricultural financing, must be cognizant of the planting seasons so that support is timely. We've learned as young people from previous government agricultural interventions that offering agricultural inputs off-season is a wastage of efforts and taxpayers' money to increase household incomes or even improve food security. C, that government develops a comprehensive phase-out strategy of the youth livelihood program, without which youth livelihood program must be retained and recapitalized. What is the future of these orphaned youth livelihood groups? What happens to the recovered and unrecovered funds? Otherwise, we risk undoing the gains of the program. The youth livelihood program is a revolving fund. Therefore, the unplanned collapse of the program will lead to the death of many youth groups that benefited from the program. For sustainability, the youth demand that going forward, we build on programs rather than totally collapsing one program for another. D, that government increases its investment in agribusiness incubation centers to enable the youth to access modern agribusiness equipment and technical advisory services. E, that government popularizes the existing agribusiness innovation hubs like Uganda Industrial Research Institute to enable more youth to access hands-on entrepreneurship training. F, that the Ministry of Trade, Industries and Cooperatives promotes youth-led cooperatives to increase their access to credit and technical advisory service. G, that government provides free land to verified youth groups. Uganda Investment Authority should undertake deliberate policy of allocating free land to organize youth groups for commercial agriculture. This shall increase the number of young people involved in agriculture for employment and also respond to the question of land ownership for the youth. H, that government fast tracks the extension of electricity and reduces tariffs for small industries doing value addition. For example, it's unfortunate that a sub-region like Nile, with many young entrepreneurs, only 8.4% of the population is connected to the national grid as per the UBOS household survey of 2019-2020. Sector 2 is on trade, industry and manufacturing. The skilling gap and the mismatch between labor market demands and education is an existential challenge in the employment sector. We recommend that A, government expedites the establishment of the zonal youth skilling centers in the zonal industrial hubs. It is important for government to inform Parliament of the policies guiding the operations of these skilling hubs, recruitment, management, and stakeholder involvement. For example, the youth leaders and the MPs are not being consulted. These skilling centers should be equipped with common user facility and linked to government agencies responsible for business facilitation, like URI, to spur more innovation and entrepreneurship among young people. Uganda National Bureau of Standards should also support free certification for innovative products of less than 2 years old. Uganda Revenue Authority should also play a central role in supporting innovations that have a high potential for growth and replication for future widening of the tax base. B, that there are deliberate job reservations for youth in foreign firms operating in Uganda, and also job reservations in public works projects. For example, road works and public procurement contracts. This will also enhance technology transfer. C, that the special program for youth enterprise under the Uganda Development Bank is made more accessible to young people throughout Uganda, and adequate publicity of the program is prioritized. D, that the government prioritizes increasing the number of visa-free African countries for Ugandan citizens so that our young traders meaningfully benefit from the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is one of the largest free trade areas, comprising of a market size of 1.3 billion people and a combined GDP of 3.4 trillion US dollars. Sector 3 is on service industries, entrepreneurship, and externalization of labor. In 2015, Uganda was named the most entrepreneurial country in the world in a report by B2B Marketplace Approved Index. According to Economic Policy Research Center, the MSMEs, or micro, small, medium enterprises, employ 8.5 million Ugandans. 90% of the SMEs contribute to the private sector, and 80% are in the manufacturing. And yet, the sad fact is that 70% of these MSMEs close before celebrating the second birthday. It is hard to find a purely founded Ugandan business that is more than 30 years old, Right Honorable Speaker. Entrepreneurship in Uganda today reflects necessity-driven approaches than opportunity-driven. The limitedness of these incentives will drive businesses to close even when there is a high farm entry. Of concern is also the unfavorable taxation regime for the enterprising youth, characterized by absence
Are you about to finish?
Yes, I'm about. The issues of the youth are quite many, Right Honorable Speaker.
So you're not allowing other people to debate because
we are
exhausted?
We're almost done, Right Honorable. Of concern is also the unfavorable taxation regime for the enterprising youth, characterized by the absence of clear policies to guide the tax exemptions. Government tax exemptions, government bailouts, and other investor incentives. This, coupled with private and public sector corruption in business, locks out young people from competing favorably in the market. We recommend that government introduces a Startup Act, which is intended to be a comprehensive legislation and regulatory framework aimed at fostering entrepreneurship and enabling the development of new firms with a high growth potential through the granting of targeted incentives. B, that government develops clear policy guidelines for issuance, management, and monitoring of different tax benefits and incentives issued to protect businesses owned by youth. C, that the Ministry of Finance, Planning, and Economic Development expedites the development, publishing, and gazetting of the National Local Content Plan, which contains mechanisms for achieving local content obligations prescribed by the Act. More specifically, youth are demanding participation in government procurement through ring fencing of at least 30% of local contracts for youth-owned companies. D, that government supports small business through recapitalization. E, that government ensures the that government explains to the youth the performance of the Youth Venture Capital Fund and consults on the fundamental reforms to the program. For example, who monitors and evaluates the program when the youth. We are also informed that some of these banks have started marketing their expensive loan packages to the youth instead of offering them this fund. The youth are concerned about the level of commitment to protect Ugandan migrant workers from exploitation, hazardous work, environment and trafficking. Our recommendations are that government champions policy and legislative reforms on labor externalization. B, that government explores bilateral protocols for more professional and higher paying external jobs. Sector 4, Right Honourable Speaker, is on ICT. There is limited and structured government support for science and technology-based innovations and initiatives that have the potential of transforming lives and providing local solutions and creating employment. To make matters worse, the cost of internet data is too high and has led to the death of most young businesses that survive on the internet. Our recommendation are that government considers further reducing the cost of internet. Currently, there is a direct 12% tax levy on internet data, in addition to the value-added tax of 18%, which is considered double taxation and worse than the failed OTT tax. B, that government creates and popularizes a significant special fund for scaling up innovations and equitably develops innovations hub throughout the country. Sector 5, creative arts and sports. While the pandemic took a toll on the arts and sports industries, the creative industry is one of the greatest employers and yet less invested in sectors. According to UBO's survey, it is estimated that the creative industry employs approximately 12,460 SMEs with an estimated generation of approximately Uganda shillings 3.18 trillion to the economy. While the pandemic caused the closure of many social events and affected direct and indirect jobs in the sector, there is no clear government policy and framework for identification, sustainable support and management of young people with extraordinary talent. We recommend that government fast tracks the process.
If your document is still big, kindly lay on table, we shall capture everything.
Okay.
It will be on the hand side.
Thank you.
You can't come and read for us a Bible on the floor.
Right Honourable Speaker, I beg to lay this document on the motion for the resolution of Parliament urging government to prioritize the state of the youth in Uganda. I beg to lay.
Honourable Akelo Lucy as the seconder. Then we have Honourable Basil.
Thank you, Madam
2
Speaker.
minutes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity, and I want to thank Honourable Okot for moving this motion, and I rise to second the motion. Madam Speaker, allow me to expand or make a supplement on the elaborate justification that Honourable Boniface gave. Madam Speaker, in the 10th Parliament, we visited Kenya, and one of the programs that they have as affirmative action is ring fencing. 30%, about 30% of all contracts are given to youth-led companies. And I've had Honourable Boniface also talk about this. I think as a country, if we go in this line, this will help a lot. Secondly, Madam Speaker, in regards to skilling the youth, just like talked about in the motion, we have a program of promotion of green jobs and fair labor market in Uganda, which was established in 2016, and it is under the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. Madam Speaker, it would be very good for this House to know about the components of these green jobs, and I am almost sure that half of the members of Parliament are not aware of what this entails. And if we had actually implemented the 4 components of these green jobs and green jobs and fair labor, I am sure our youth would be well skilled, because the first component talks about support to the informal sector, the juakalis. How many of these juakalis, apart from those that are in Kampala, are actually being supported in our constituencies? How many of them? It would be good to get such reports. And then things like establishment of industrial shelters, and then promoting green incubation centers using the Songhai model. These are things that we need more emphasis on, and we need more information about as we celebrate the youth, the International Youth Days, the celebrations. It would be very good for the minister to come, not just to read the statement, but also update this House about the progress of these very beautiful programs that they started by this government of Uganda. Finally, Madam Speaker, on the youth livelihood program, Madam Speaker, this program at one point we were told it was moved from gender to President's office. And right now we are not even sure where it is exactly. So the information about youth livelihood program is very scanty, and just like the mover stated, we don't want this beautiful program that started, much as it had challenges, to just die like that. At least even if we are to phase it out, can we phase it out from an informed point of view? Have we done evaluation to see how much loss has been caused as a result of this program, without saying that this has to move to another place? Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Lucy. One would also ask, how much do MPs know about Juakali? How much? Do they know anything about Juakali? Completely no. So the minister, maybe you need to give us information about Juakali so that we get to understand what it is. The green jobs, they are called green jobs. Basil, you'll come after.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to second and to react to the motion on the youth. So for the record, Bataringa Basil is my name. I represent people of Kashar North, Mbarara District, and I am a very strong supporter of youth activities, and these youth MPs refer me as senior youth. I want to thank the Honorable Okot Boniface for the motion, and I rise to support him. And also, I'll make a comment on the Honorable Minister's statement. However, I want to say the youth are still paid lip service in the country. For example, the Youth Day is on 12th, and it is known it's an international day. Women's Day is on 8th March. I've never had it postponed to another date. Labor Day is on 1st May. I have never had it postponed to be celebrated on another day. Independence Day has never been postponed. Christmas Day has never been postponed. So it disturbs me that we still pay lip service to the youth, and we can afford to postpone their day when and budgeted for. Secondly, this year, the theme is very good. That is what attracts me to rise actually and support. Intergenerational solidarity, a world of all ages. That is the international theme. In Uganda here, the theme is intergenerational solidarity, the role of the youth in implementation of the parish development model. Which means if we support and prioritize the youth agenda in this country, we shall be supporting development in this country. And I don't want to take a lot of time here. Somebody has already lamented about electricity in West Nile. It is not only West Nile that is crying. The youth in Kashar North are crying about electricity, which has spent 3 years. It is late, it is generated, it is present, but they prepared themselves, bought some equipment for welding, and for 3 years, the transformers are making noise without electricity being flowing to the people. So it means these youth are frustrated, and once then we shall not have.
Achan.
Thank you very much.
Achan Noya. And Dorcas.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I want to thank Honorable Boniface Okot for a very comprehensive motion and for clearly articulating the issues that are affecting the youth in this country. I support the motion, and I would want to implore Honorable Boniface and also the Minister of Gender that yes, we have the prayers from this team, and I think they're very great prayers. And one of the things that they've put here is for government to ensure that social services, they've pulled out education and health to be youth responsive, and I strongly support that. But I also want to implore the ministry and the team to include the gender perspective, to have the gender lens weaved into this. COVID-19 lockdown had disproportionate effects, especially on the female youth in this country. Even right now, as we talk about commemorating the International Youth Day, as we talk about the youth who were here, but we know that the female youth whose lives form the tapestry of this reality, because they are characterized by high rates of school dropouts. As we talk, majority are child mothers from the teenage pregnancies. I would like to implore the minister that as part of your activities for that week, if possible, add also there the component of psychosocial support for these child mothers or the female youth, and also helping them to link them multi-sectoral services in the country. I thank you.
Chairperson Gender.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I would like to thank the Minister of Gender for the statement she made and the very elaborate motion which I thought became a report from the youth, the Member of Parliament representing youth, Honorable Court. Madam Speaker, the young people in Uganda require a strategy that is not business as usual. First of all, Madam Speaker, the population of this country now has 54% under 18. Those are dependents. When you add older persons and you add PWDs, then the dependence rate almost goes to 70%. Madam Speaker, these young people need to be planned for from their childhood. Madam Speaker, if we are still getting young people dropping out of school, His Excellency recently was lamenting that how can we have 100 pupils in a school and then only 32% are completing. For us, we lamented long time ago, and now His Excellency is realizing that the completion rate is very low. And Madam Speaker, as a Ministry of Gender, we have continued to encourage these young people who don't complete school to be externalized as labor. Madam Speaker, are we going to externalize beggars? Are we going to externalize mediocres who cannot cope with the languages, who cannot cope with the culture, who cannot cope with the appliances, in a modern household. And Madam Speaker, as if that is not enough, recently here we got a
Margaret.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. For record purposes, I'm Ayebare Margaret Rebyambo, woman MP Mbarara District. I want to thank Honorable Court for giving us the state of the youth in Uganda. I want to say something about Youth Livelihood Fund and how it is getting phased out in relation to the parish development model. We all know that most of the youth in this country do not own land. And yet parish development model is looking at agriculture, specifically on growing of crops and rearing of animals. So we are looking at how this youth is going to work with parish development model, even when we are allocating them the 30% of the money in the parish development model. I'm of the view that we maintain the Youth Livelihood Fund, whereby that fund, any youth can use it with any enterprise, not necessarily where land is required. I beg to submit.
Thank you. Namisindwa.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to agree with my sister, the Chair of Gender, in saying that the country is highly populated with the dependents. And these are our youths that we are talking about today. And we need a lot to be done to ensure that these youths are taken care of. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Court when he comes up with the zonal youth skilling centers. These skilling centers are very important, and I think they are going to help our youths. Right Honorable Speaker, right now, us who come from rural areas, every youth is busy selling a piece of land in the village to buy a boda, motorcycle, and come to town. They ride it for only 2 to 3 days. They get an accident. The boda is destroyed. They are, they are fractured and they are hospitalized. And therefore, Right Honorable Speaker, scaling up and making these skilling centers available, they will help and motivate our youths to come and engage in some other activities that will be money-making other than them looking at boda riding as the only source of income. Right Honorable Speaker, secondly, I think we also need to involve as a country so much in changing our curriculum and not focusing and bringing up our children, teaching them only how to look at greener pasture and looking at office jobs, but also us as parents starting to model.
Matavo, there is a procedure matter.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I listened to Honorable colleague very well, the report he presented, and I've listened to the Honorable colleagues that have submitted. He presented a very elaborate report, and I've heard all the colleagues amplifying what he presented. We haven't added anything new. In light of Honorable Cecilia's submission, earlier submission, I want to procedurally suggest, Right Honorable Speaker, that we call the debate to an end, you put a question and we move on. I beg to move.
Why are you saying no? Members, what is left that you have not finished? Minister.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable, let me thank the Honorable Member who moved the motion, Honorable Court,
for the motion. I want to note that all the issues raised are issues that are already being handled, and it's good he articulates the various programs either within government or in the ministry, the Youth Livelihood Program, the Youth Venture Capital Fund, the externalization of labor, the skilling, productivity enhancement programs. All the programs within government are clearly articulated with the key recommendations.
Honorable members, there is one chair in the house. If you want to speak, just get out a bit and have your talk.
I want only to answer a few of the issues which were raised by members. I start with your issue, Right Honorable, on the green jobs. The green jobs, which is called a Juakali support, is a program under the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, which provides business toolkits, equipment to Juakali businesses and groups, and selected microfinance and small enterprises. It also undertakes skills training, especially business development services, skilling, technical, trade, and learning in respect
Procedure.
to...
Procedure.
Continue.
Provision of technical and trade training for Juakali businesses. In this circumstance, if you would want to be trained in, for example, any trade-related skills like welding, it can support you and place you in that trade, and you are able to acquire that skills. So this particular program, which is called Green Jobs under the ministry, we want to scale it up. However, this financial year, we have been given only 4 billion. We want to make it a constituency-based focus intervention, but the 4 billion is inadequate. However, many members of parliament has made an application, and we will try as much as possible to support, and where we fail to support all the members, for all the groups you have asked for, we will come back and give a report. We have another program which is apprenticeship and graduate volunteer scheme. It's also a program that develops employability skill, self-employment, labor productivity and opportunities for youth aged 16 to 35 years. It's a work-based learning for unemployed youth. For example, youth who have degrees or diplomas are recruited and placed in various companies and MDAs of government, and we give you small stipend for majorly supporting you for transport. The purpose of this is to develop your skills. You volunteer while you gain the experience, because most jobs, when you are applying, they ask you for experience. So we felt for this, those who are newly graduate people who have not yet got jobs, if we place them with that small little pay, it will support you and you gain that experience. Decent Country Program, we have this program which is supported by International Labour Organization, also handles youth in respect to ensuring that those who are in labor force are supported in all other aspects. The Youth Livelihood Program, which was articulated here, we have money which we have recovered, and that money recovered has been plowed back to the ministry, about 18 billion, which we are going to lend youth in the districts. The rest, can I finish and then I get your clarification?
You first finish, then you will get a clarification.
The other program under Youth Livelihood Program, the finances were moved to State House, and State House has constructed 16 youth skilling center in all the original, the Acholi, the Lango, the Ankole, the Bunyoro, those 16 each has a youth skilling center. We are working with State House, and Cabinet has already adopted a framework of how the youth skilling center will be functioning, and I hope the Minister for Presidency can come and give an elaborate explanation.
Clarification.
Otherwise, Right Honorable Speaker, on the issue of startups, issues of access to social services, access to financing, being responsive to social services by the youth, and youth involvement in decision making, we have elaborated this, and at an appropriate time I will come and give an extensive statement on the floor on each of these. But we recognize and we thank and regret the postponement of Youth Day, but pledge that it will not happen again. I thank you.
Honorable Minister, you need to bring a comprehensive report and a status report on the green jobs and fair labor markets in Uganda. We want to know which constituency, which district has benefited. With evidence, because you may be saying we have 4 billion and you'll imagine that maybe Bukede has benefited. So we want to know which constituencies, which districts have benefited. So we need that comprehensive report next week before you use the 4 billion, which you have been advanced to. Next item. A, motion. I put a question that this House adopts the motion for a resolution of Parliament urging government to prioritize the state of the youth in Uganda. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. The ayes have it.
Designation of members to committees.
Honorable members, Rule 1573 of the Rules of Procedure require that a member shall belong to not more than 2 committees, except in respect to Business Committee, Appointments Committee, and Budget Committee. I therefore invite the leader of government business to designate a new member who has just been voted in.
Right. I want to designate Honorable Ariko Herbert, NRM, to Standing Committee for Budget. And at the same time, that is on a standing committee, which is budget. Then I also designate him on Honorable Ariko Herbert on a sector committee, that is natural resources. I beg to submit.
Thank you. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. In addition, pursuant to Rule 164 of the Rules of Procedure, as the leader of independence, I designate Honorable Ntongo to a sectoral committee of education and standing committee of COSASE. Those in favor say and the contrary nay. The House adjourned to 2 tomorrow.